Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 162 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we've got a few exhibit animals. I've got a few lined up for the next few episodes, which I'm quite excited to get into. But we've also got a cool extinct animal at the end, all the way from the Triassic, and a few birds as well. So we've got a very interesting assortment of species. So let's get stuck into it. So first up, we have got by Scott. We've got the transversal fat-tailed scorpion. So let's have a look at these little guys. Let's see if we can find one that's in the light, because they're all not kind of in the light at the moment. There we are. There's a perfect one. So this is by Scott, who does all sorts of really cool exhibit animals and things like that. So the scientific name is Parabruthus transversalicus, but they're also known in terms of their common name as the traversal fat-tailed scorpion, the South African thick-tail, and the giant deathstalker. So these guys are giant species of venomous scorpion that comes from southern Africa. So these guys grow to lengths of about 90 to 110 millimeters, or about 3.5 to 4.3 inches, and is dark brown or black in color, as are also known as the black thick-tailed scorpion. You can see they've got also quite thin pincers, but they've got quite thick tails, where they get the name, obviously, the fat tail. With the sting segment, or the telson, I believe that's the term, probably for the bit, is being as wide as the rest of the tail, so it's got a very thick, long tail. It is nocturnal, so it comes out only at night, resting in a shallow burrow under rocks during the day, and it resembles its progenitor, another species of scorpion, which is less strictly nocturnal, hairier, and more westerly, so they look a little bit different. In terms of its distribution, these species are found in deserts, scrublands, and semi-arid areas of Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, some parts of the Namib Desert, and South Africa. And what's really interesting about it as well is that it's got a cool toxin, so it's dangerously medically significant venom, so it's got quite dangerous venom, which can both sting and spray its curotoxic venom. And what's really interesting as well, the first droplet of its venom actually differs from the rest, so it's considered what's called a pre-venom. And its a further potassium channel inhibitor, parabutoxin, has also been isolated from the venom of the species. So it's really cool that a little bit of research into that to see how different venoms affect different scorpions affect different animals. But yeah, that's quite cool. Another banger from Scott. That's always a win. So next up, we have got the Cape coral snake. So let's have a look at these guys. So the Cape coral snake. So they're beautiful. Oh, we got one sitting right there. Look how cute you are. Beautiful coral snake. Also done by Scott. So this is Adilaps lubricus, or as they say that, also known as the Cape coral snake, the Cape coral crower, or the coral shield snake. These are a species of a lapid snake that are venomous as well, and are only found in southern Africa. So there's two different subspecies. So there's the Cape coral snake, which is the dominant subspecies, and the Angolan coral snake. So these guys are found in, kind of South Africa up into Namibia and Botswana, I believe. But the other species, subspecies, is kind of found in the other area as well. I think they have been split into a couple species as well. But yeah, these guys are found in the Karoo, former Cape province, and all the way up into Namibia. They mostly inhabit very arid areas like deserts or rocky sandy ecosystems. And the areas within South Africa where they can be found are known for low rainfall and little vegetation, mostly things like scrubs and things like that. In terms of its description, these guys are a relatively small, slender-bodied snake. They get to about 1.6 to 2 feet, or about 49 to 61 centimeters in total length, including the tail, but can grow up to about 76 centimeters, or about 2.5 feet in some cases. So they're a small species of a lapid, which means they are part of the venomous snake family, which are usually found in tropical or subtropical areas around the globe. It has an enlarged rostral scale, with the scale located in the front of the snout above the mouth opening the snake. So that's kind of a way to tell it apart. And the head is relative to the body is very short, which makes it very easy to distinguish it from the neck and the rest of the snake. So you can see it's got quite a bit of a bulbous head, but he's quite cute. Look at the one under him. Oh, that's quite cute. So in terms of its pattern, their colours will range from red, orange to yellow, slightly resembling the coloration seen in some coral snakes, even though they're not that closely related. The Cape coral snake, so you can see, has thick black rings along the length of its body, fully encompassing the body, not fully on the tail segment. And there's about 20 to 47 total rings spanning the length of the snake's body. And they also actually contain a narrow hood, as they're kind of more closely related to cobras than actual coral snakes. So they're kind of a type of relative of cobras. In terms of their behavior, they are nocturnal, which means they spend most of its activity in hunting during the night. Since it prefers arid rocky ecosystems, it would often be found living under rocks or even in burrows or tunnels, and also be known to prefer leaving its burrow or hiding spots on cooler nights compared to warmer nights in the summer, so they do like a little bit cooler. In terms of diet, they are nocturnal, so they rely on their smell and their taste to hunt for prey. They typically leave the burrow to look for small vertebrates, but it preys specifically on lizards, but also be known to attack vertebrates like legless skinks, small rodents, but even sometimes other snakes. They've also been known to target vertebrates which are strictly diurnal, which they'll be sleeping during the night when they're active. They've also been known to rear up towards prey or when threatened, and then strike, injecting its venom. And even in captivity, they've been known to eat some types of fish, mice, small rats, but also chicken legs, which are preferred by the juveniles. In terms of its reproduction life cycle, not much is actually known about it from the wild, but we do know a bit of it because we have kept specimens. In captivity, they are known to be quite easy to breed. The breeding period typically starts in the winter, with the cooling down of the winter temperatures, and then the snake then increases its uptake of food to help cope with the extra energy needed to reproduce. And if mating occurs at this time, the eggs will usually be laid between May or June, and after that, there is a period of about 65 days between the egg beginning to hatch, and it's usually between 3 to 11 eggs hatch per clutch, with sometimes multiple clutch per breeding period, with each hatchling can be about 17 to 18 centimeters or 6.7 to 7.1 inches in total length. So we'll talk a little bit about their venom as well. So although they're quite common in captivity, there's still little available information on their venom and their effect, but a study analysis showing the composition is very similar to other elapids, such as the species in the genus Naja, which is known as the true cobras. And when venom has been taken in captivity, it yields about 27 to 71 milligrams of wet venom. The average yield is about 55% milligrams and about 28% solid material. And has been shown in rats to have neurological symptoms, which escalates into respiratory failure, so can't breathe, and then eventually dies. So it is quite powerful. Few reports have been had like no symptoms or possible bites without envenomating, mild symptoms to severe neurological signs and fatal outcomes. The effect of the venom might depend on variations of the intraspecific venom composition, amount of administered to the patient, and the venom administered, so it might just not release that many, or it might release a lot of venom, and the body weight of the person that was bitten. So recently, a 44-year-old man was bitten twice by the snake, which was kept in captivity. One after the bite, he developed vomiting, respiratory failure, paralysis of the bulbar muscles and upper limbs, and with retention of voluntary motor control in the lower limbs. And after treatment, paralysis and respiratory failure resolved in 12 hours, and no antivenom or established clinical protocol is currently available for the species, and timely access to assisted ventilation is limited to many regions of South Africa. So it is a dangerous animal. So if you see a Cape coral snake and you're in South Africa, there's not antivenom, and there's not a way to survive as easily as you would in somewhere that's more developed like the US. So you got to be very careful. In the conservation status, they are likely considered non-threatened. They are considered least concern, so they're doing quite well. But the main threat of these species is things like highways and roads, which can block parts of habitats, and then they can get run over, which is very not good. But anyway, there's the Cape coral snake, nice little guy. And look at these cute little guys hanging out on the branch. I love them, they're so cute. Alright, next up we have got the boomslang. So a really nice little guy here. So there's one hanging out in there. If there was a tree snake, we'll see the one on the tree. Where's the one on the tree? Because he was sitting there. We'll have a look at you. That's more accurate for them because they are a tree snake. So the boomslang, or Discolophus typus, is a highly venomous snake in the family Colubridae. So it's a colubrid. And the species is native to sub-Saharan Africa. So the common name means tree snake in Dutch, and Afrikaans means like tree snake, or boomslang, tree snake, which is quite interesting. And it's thought to be closely related to a few other interesting genera like Thyrlosis and things like that. There are two different subspecies recognized, with the dominant subspecies being Dilophosaurus typus typus, and then there's Typus cuvinensis, and there's kind of, debate on taxonomy, things like that. So the average kind of boomslang is about 100 to 160 centimeters, or about 3.3 to 5.2 feet in length, including the tail, though some have exceeded 6 feet, or about 183 centimeters. Their eyes are also exceptionally large, as you can kind of see there, and their head has a very characteristic egg-like shape. And their colours can also be quite variable, with males being a light green with blue or black scale edges, but adult females might be brown, so that shows sexual dimorphism or differences between the sexes. Weights can vary between 175 to 510 grams, so just over a pound is kind of as big as they'll get, with an average weight of about 299.4 grams. In this species, the head is distinct from the neck, and the Carthus rostalis is distinct. They've also got a very round pupil. You see they've also got I'm not going to go into the little speeches like the scales and things because it's kind of hard to notice and something like that. Anyway, the geographic range, they're endemic to sub-Saharan Africa, and they can be found in Gambia, Guinea, Senegal, most of Western Africa, throughout most of Central and Eastern Africa, like Kenya, Sudan, Uganda, South Sudan, Uganda, places like that, the Congo. They're also found across much of southern Africa, so we can find in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, Angola, Botswana, all those kind of places. Very wide range. And the boomslang is an excellent climber, so is highly arboreal, so it can be found often in the trees. They live mainly in forested areas like the karoo shrubs, savannas, lowland forests, and in grasslands. They're not restricted to trees, though, and can be often found on the ground hunting, fleeing, or taking shelter, and they will occasionally hide underground when weather is harsh. So even though they're a tree snake, for the most part, they will come down to the ground and do their thing. In terms of reproduction, they're oviparous, so they'll lay eggs. They can lay up to about 30 eggs, which are deposited in a hollow tree trunk or rotting log. They have a relatively long incubation period of about 3 months on average. And male hatchlings will actually appear with grey with blue speckles, and females hatch a pale brown, so there's a little bit of sexual dimorphism there. They typically attain their adult colour after several years, and hatchlings that are about 20 centimetres long, or about 7.9 inches, and pose no threat to humans, but they get dangerously venomous by the time they reach about 45 centimetres or 18 inches, with a girth as thick as an adult's smallest finger. So once they reach that kind of size, that's when they start to become dangerous to humans. In terms of their behaviour, they are diurnal, so they go out during the day, and they're almost exclusively arboreal, quite reclusive. They move from branch to branch when pursued by anything too large to eat. Their diet includes animals like chameleons and other arboreal lizards, but also frogs, small mammals, birds, and eggs from nesting reptiles and birds, all of which are swallowed whole. They've also been known to feed on other snakes, including other boomslangs, but during cold weather as well, they'll often rumate for short periods, often curling up in the nest of a weaver bird, so that's quite interesting. So we'll talk a little bit about their venom as well. So many venomous snakes of the Colubridae are harmless to humans, unless they've got a rare allergy, and these snakes, including the boomslang, are also known as rare-fanged snakes. So the venom-injecting teeth are at the back of the mouth instead of the front of the mouth. They're not vipers and leopards, so they tend to chew on things. But they do have quite a potent venom. So they're less likely to bite you, but they still have quite a potent venom. Many of these snakes, including the boomslang, have a highly potent venom. So things like sea snakes have this, and they've got really potent venom that can kill like fish within seconds. They'll typically open its jaws up to 170 degrees while biting to envenomate you. And the venom of the boomslang is a hemotoxin. That means it makes lots of clots in your blood, so it'll cause your kind of blood circulatory system to kind of not function properly, and basically cause you to causes excessive bleeding and death. So basically, it makes you when you cut yourself, you have a you have a scab that come over it. It just won't scab. You just keep bleeding until you basically die. And it causes hemorrhaging, also can cause headaches, nausea, sleepiness, and confusion, and then eventually leads to cardiac arrest and unconsciousness. It's a very slow-acting venom as well, so the symptoms might not appear until hours after a bite. And the absence of symptoms provides further time for occurring venom as well. Snakes of any species can sometimes fail to inject when they bite, which is called a dry bite. So you might be lucky, you might have been bitten, but if you don't show any symptoms for a while, you might not have just been envenomated, because it takes a lot of effort for them to make venom, so they don't want to waste it around. So you might be safe. Might be a bit of a bluff. But the adult bloomslang it typically has 1.6 to 8 milligrams of venom, with a medical lethal dose in mice being 0.1 milligram per kilo, so it can be quite dangerous. So, based on the very low venom quantities and various studies found in good parts human cases, it suggests that it's actually less effective, very effective. With only 2 or 3 milligrams, actually can kill a healthy adult human, so that's a big issue as well. And actually, there was a Carl Schmidt, who was a herpetologist, was bitten by a juvenile, which he doubted could have made a fatal dose. He noted the symptoms he experienced almost at the end. He also another guy was experienced some serious venomations, and there are antivenom that has been developed for these guys in the 1940s. Which is like it's a thing. And there are timid snakes, so bites will only generally occur when people try to kill or handle or catch the animals. So they're very timid snakes, which is good. So if you leave them alone, they will leave you alone and won't bite you. But when confronted or cornered, they will typically inflate their neck in an S-shaped striking pose, which is a key indicator of any snake species feeling threatened. So if you see that pose, if you're in South Africa and you've come across a boomslang and you see that pose, or just any snake for that matter doing that, that means go away, I'm going to bite, I'm defending myself. So a lot of animals, they're not assholes. They don't want to attack you because they're dicks. They just want to survive. And if you're going to catch them and try and threaten them, that's what's going to happen. It's just part of nature. So you got to be very careful with wild animals, especially anything that can deal serious harm to you. But anyway, we will carry on. So next up, those 3 mods were all done by Scott. Always does a wonderful job. Love his exhibit mods. Next up, we've got Monsoon. How can you not love Monsoon? We've got the Padawan Peacock, Palawan Peacock, not Padawan. Palawan Peacock-pheasant. So this is Polycephalon napoleonensis. So these guys are a medium-sized bird from the pheasant family, and they're endemic to Palawan in the Philippines. They're also known as the Tagakan by some local peoples, things like that. So the adult male is kind of the most peacock-like of the family in appearance. You can see they've got an erectile crest, so you can see really nice crest, and highly iridescent, like electric blue feathers, as you can see down there. Looks really, really cool, and Monsoon managed to capture that quite well. The flight feathers are wide, flat, and rigid, with black edges and an iridescent kind of violet, blue-green on the edges. The tail feathers as well are very fine brown speckling, and you can see they've got these light refractive eyes going down them, which is quite interesting. The tail is held erect and expanded laterally with the bodies of the bird. So the male will also raise one wing and lower the other, laterally compressing the body during pair bonding, courtship displays, and may also be an anti-predator adaptation, so they may be using it to confuse predators. The female as well, though, is slightly smaller than the males. Not too huge a difference. Is that a female? No, that's another male. So the females are slightly smaller. They have much duller plumage, like most females do. The mantle and breasts are kind of like a dark brown in colour. The ticulars are still like those, and they still have on their tail feathers, those kind of iridescent eye spots down the tail. But other than that, they're pretty much, like a dark brown. We'll have a look at the chicks as well. Where is the chicks? Those are little cute little guys. So these little chicks are like a vivid ginger or cinnamon hue with prominent yellow markings. And juveniles of both first years will stay closer to the mother, but subadults in the second year will more so closely resemble their fathers, and then kind of over 2 or 3 years they'll become just like adults. And like other peacock pheasants, these males will actually have multiple spurs on their legs, and this can be used as an anti-predator defense, contest with other males, but also foraging through leaf litter. A male Palawan excavates slight depressions, which he often will orient his body during his displays, and they vibrate loudly using stridulation of their quills, and they actually can use this as both audible and but also seismic communication. And they're quite strong flyers too, so they can fly in a swift, direct, and sustained way. So they're quite good at flying. Just look at this there. Look at this wonderful guy. They're probably going to have a bit of a fight. Hope not. Yeah, there they are. Going to have a fight. Anyway, in terms of their distribution and habitat, they are only found in the Philippines. They can be found in the humid forests of Palawan Island in the southern part of the Philippine archipelago. They are confirmed to the lowlands and footlands at elevations below about 1,000 meters. So in terms of their taxonomy, it's believed that these guys with the unique plumage and distinct rays are kind of an early Pleistocene shoot of the genus. And the species is widely accepted to be monotypic, but whilst the males have like a double-banded or mask appearance, often lack other traits like other species of pheasants. So now they're kind of considered their own sort of species, really. In terms of their behavior and ecology, they are highly insectivorous, so they eat lots of little bugs and things. They'll take isopods, earwigs, insect larvae, mollusks, centipedes, and termites, but will eat things like small frogs, jupes, seeds, and berries. They're also strictly monogamous, re-nesting yearly. The female will usually lay up to 2 eggs, and both parents will rear the chicks for up to 2 years, with males acting as sentinels for nest sites and are highly kind of pronogamous, so they're very defensive parents, which is quite good. They also have a short kind of shriek, short high shriek that lasts for about a second and is repeated every 5 seconds. So they are sadly considered vulnerable because they have dealing with ongoing habitat loss. So people chopping down their forests, small population size, there's not too many of them, and they have a limited range. They're only found on one island. And capture for the pet trade. These guys are considered vulnerable and is listed in Appendix 1 on CITES. But yeah, you can see a really cool guy there. You can see those multiple spurs on the tarsus there. So the metatarsus looks really, really cool. I love this. You know, Monsoon always, gives us bangers. I really love Monsoon's mods. Really gives us some awesome birds. So yeah, that's it there. So we are going to carry on now. We've got all Great Cakes mods at the moment, so we're going to be moving on to the plate-billed mountain toucan. So let's have a look at these guys, another really interesting mod. So the plate-billed mountain toucan, or Angelina, or something like that, I don't know, Lamarostris, is a species of bird from the toucan family. It is native to the west slopes of Ecuador and extremely southern Colombia, where it lives in high-altitude humid mountain forests in the Andes. But also other common names are the laminated hill toucan, the laminated mountain toucan, or things like that. So these guys have a large laterally compressed bill, as you kind of see that there, with the front half of which is black and the back half is mostly red, with a yellow plate on the mandible. A unique feature which the bird is named, so it's got that plate build. They have a reddish-brown iris and a bare ocular area with a yellow and kind of turquoise colour, and the crown of the nape is kind of like a bronzy orange. You can also see the side of the neck and underparts are like a bluey grey and have a yellow rump patch, so they're very characteristic coloured birds. In terms of their size, they get to about 42 to 53 centimeters, or about 16.5 to 21 inches in length, with a relatively lightweight bill up to about 10 centimeters long, with the average male weighs about 314 grams, or about 11.1 ounces, and the female is about 303 grams, or 10.7 ounces. It is zygodactylous as well, so they do have 2 toes kind of facing each way on their feet, with 2 front and 2 back. And the most vocal species of mountain toucans, and these species will often do duets. So the male will make a loud kind of colour, and then the female make a little drier colour noise to it. And they're quite loud; they can be heard from a kilometre away. So let's have a look at you over there. You can have a fly. Look at you. Have a look at you. So these are some of the new custom animations that Great Cakes was made, and adding them to a lot of their mods. So in terms of their distribution habitat, they can be found on the western footlands of the Andes, or western Ecuador, or far southwestern Colombia. In Colombia, they can be found in the Pita Canyon in Colombia, so they're kind of found around those areas. They're like humid forests with epiphytes, bromeliads, and mosses. These forests receive an average of 14 feet of rainfall per year, where the canopy reaches about 6 to 10 meters. The altitude ranges between 1,600 and 2,600 meters above sea level, and they've been observed several times at 3,100 meters in elevation in Ecuador. Because of this altitudinal range, they do share a niche with the Andean cock of the rock, and their estimated life area is about 14,300 kilometers. In terms of their breeding and ecology, they typically breed from March to October, peaking through March to August. The birds will nest in tree cavities up to about 30 meters off the ground. The clutch will contain 2 or 3 white eggs. So we'll have a look at the cute little babies. Let's see if we can find some couple cute little babies. There we are. So these are the cute little babies. The eggs incubated for about 16 days, and the young will fledge about 46 to 60 days. And once the young depart, they may actually have a second brood. So sometimes birds, when there's enough resources or enough time, they will have multiple clutches in a season. In terms of food or feeding, these guys mainly feed on fruit, like other toucans, but they will occasionally eat insects and eggs as well. It disperses the seeds of plants such as the mountain understory brush Familia affinis and the Palm pastora acuminata, and they've also been reported eating a Sicilian, so they do have quite a varied diet. So while this species is still considered fairly common, they are sadly, I'll put that there, considered near threatened by the IUCN because of a few factors I'll get into once I get the sit in this guy, show you here. So they're considered near threatened because of their habitat loss of deforestation, which is a rampant issue across the world. They are also protected from the poached for the trade of exotic birds. So, they look cool and people want them because they're exotic. But that obviously hurts the world population. But they are considered the flagship bird of the La Plata National Reserve, Nature Reserve in Colombia. So they are kind of considered important. And luckily, they are considered near threatened and not any less. And we want to keep it that way. So make sure that we don't have any more in the trade. Alright, so that's another great cakes mod. We've got another one coming up. So these three here are all great cakes. We're going to have a look at the Papuan or Paludan hornbill. Papuan, like Papua New Guinea. Also known as a Bilos hornbill. So it's Rhinoceros pilatus or Bint's hornbill. So these are a large hornbill that can be found in the forest canopy of Wallacea. So this is a female. We'll have a look at the male later. Found in Wallacea and Melanesia, and their local name is Kokomo. So previously they were placed in the genus Aceros, but then they were lumped with the plain poached hornbill and some other hornbills. And their name commemorates Edward Blyth, who lived from 1810 to 1873, English curator, zoologist, and curated Museum of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. So we'll have a look. That's the female. Let's have a look at the male, because we love the males. Look at the beautiful So they are quite big birds. They get up to about 91 centimeters, or about 36 inches in length, with the adult male having a mainly black plumage with a golden or orange head, white throat, and a white tail. The irises are reddish-brown, and the eyes, again, are surrounded by naked pink skin, pale blue skin, I mean. And the female has a smaller, and it's mainly black, and has, more kind of like a white throat, or like a little bit of like a light blue around that throat. Both sexes are have a very large horn-coloured bill and casque, and young birds of both sexes resemble the male. So you can see young birds look like the male ones, but then once the females grow up, they look more like an adult female. Young birds of both sexes actually resemble the males, with adults up to about 8 folds in the pale casque, depending on the age, where young birds have none, so they can get these you can kind of see there, those little ridges there, so they can get up to 8 of those little ridges. In flight, they sound quite loud and distinctive, a rushing noise that has been compared to the sound of a steam escaping from a steam engine, like a train, and it has a range of far-reaching guttural like grunts and laughing calls. So they are quite vocal birds. There are a few different subspecies since they live on a bunch of islands. They can be found around the place. There's a bunch of different subspecies. Not sure how true they are, but whatever. So in terms of their habitat, they occur in lowland forests from sea level to up to about 1,500 meters in the Moluccas, New Guinea, the Bismarck Archipelago, and as far east of the Solomon Islands. And the only hornbill species native to New Guinea, and one of the largest flying birds in the region, which is quite cool. We'll have a look at the little babies. Is that a baby? Yeah, that's a baby. So you can see the babies look like the adults, but without the casque, the adult males. They also have been really sighted around the Sabi and Bulgu Islands in the Torres Strait in Queensland, Australia. So they potentially could make it to Australia. In terms of their diet, though, they eat mainly fruits, such as figs, but they will eat other insects, eat insects and small animals, so they will supplement it. In terms of their nesting, they will nest in large tree hollows in a rainforest with at least of 18 meters tall, about 59 feet, or up to about 30 meters, or just under 100 feet above the ground. So they do like high, perches to breed. The female is restricted to the nest cavity through incubation and nesting period, so she can't, like other hornbill species, they'll like seal themselves in with plastering with a mixture of fruit polyp and rotten wood, but also their own poo, so they will make a seal. So really, there's only a little slit for the male to feed her through, so she kind of stays in there. And their clutch size is about 2 eggs. In terms of their relationship with humans, they are still widespread and considered least concern, which is quite a good thing. We'll have a look at the female. So they are considered least concern, which is quite good. However, they are still subject to hunting by some tribal groups that use their feathers as headdresses. Its bill is a personal adornment, and its lower mandible as a spear point. As a consequence, it has become rarer in some areas of New Guinea, but on the other hand, the species has withstood tens of millennia of human hunting pressure, so they seem to be doing okay. As long as sufficient habitat is preserved, it is likely that hunting alone will prove a significant threat to the unless populations increase, including increases in hunting pressure. So yeah, it's one of those things, They've already dealt with humans hunting them. It's just as long as it's got enough habitat and they're okay, we can, deal with it. But yeah, really, really cool. I love these guys. Another great cakes mod. It's definitely a great cakes mod. Alright, so we're going to be moving all the way down to the Triassic. We've got a really, really cool animal here. We've got Lesovickia. There's the male here. So this is Lesovickia. So Lesovickia, these guys are an extinct genus of Dicynodont that lived in what is now Poland from the late Norian to early Rahitian period of the Triassic, so between 210 to 201 million years ago, so right at the end of the Triassic period. So Lesovickia's claim to fame is it's the largest known Dicynodont, and also as well as the largest non-mammalian synapsid, so that includes like mammals and mammal-like reptiles, things like that, or synapsids is the best way to call them, so things like Dicynodon and Dicynodonts and things like that, and Dimetrodon, all those things. So these guys are famous for being the largest of them all, and is the largest synapsid that's not a mammal, so not an elephant or a Paraceratherium or something like that. So that's his little claim to fame. So they can reach about 4.5 meters, or about 15 feet long, and stand about 2.6 meters, or about 8.5 feet tall, and at the hips, and weighed about 5 to 7 metric tons, so that's comparable in size to modern elephants. It was one of the last Dicynodonts as well, so lived shortly before the extinction at the end of the Jurassic. And these fossils of this giant Dicynodont were found in 2008, but were not officially described until 2018. So, in terms of description, although it's very large for a Dicynodont, it resembles its relatives of other Jurassic Celocathurids, which are types of Dicynodonts, like Placerius, famous for walking with dinosaurs. It was a heavily built quadruped with a rough, large barrel-shaped body and beaked jaw with a short neck and stocky limbs and a short tail. The skull is quite incomplete, but what we know, it had enough of a very similar skull to other relatives, things like Placerius, things like that, or Ischgualastia, which is a relative of these guys. And its backbone and ribs are also typical for Dicynodonts, but very interesting, its cervical vertebrae, or neck vertebrae, are notable for having being hollow. So this is very similar to some dinosaur vertebrae, associated with air sacs or a bird-like respiratory system. But however, unlike dinosaurs, they lack the vertebrae with air sacs. So these guys may have just had, very light neck vertebrae to help, carry that head, a bit of cost-efficient, as well. And the bones of the pelvis and hip are very robust compared to other Dicynodonts because of its massive size. And it says the largest known femur is about 80 centimeters, or about 31 inches. And like other Dicynodonts, they would have held their upright beneath their body, so they would be not splaying like crocodiles walk. They would be upright like mammals and dinosaurs are. In terms of its forelimbs, there's a lot of really interesting research on its forelimbs. They're very distinct forelimbs compared to other Dicynodonts, as they share features more with mammals and dinosaurs. Because of its larger size, it likely had to, be more upright to better support their weight. So most other Dicynodonts are a little bit more squat in position, but because of their larger size, they've actually moved it more to straight, and that's likely because of evolution. They're getting bigger, becoming large herbivores. They would have, had to straighten out their legs to become a little bit more, better support their weight. So that's really interesting about these guys. So they wouldn't have had kind of that sprawled position. And to achieve this posture, they had to have a few changes. So their shoulder joint and elbow are parallel. They don't have a rotated humerus like the sprawling dicynodonts. So there's a lot of adaptations that we can see from the bones that allowed them to get bigger because of their, changing that posture to get bigger. And in terms of their size, although it's incomplete, all the elements of the skeleton indicate it was quite big. As I mentioned, 4.5 meters, 15 long, height of about 8 feet. And its body was actually initially calculated about 9 tons, or about 10 short tons, based on the circumference of the femur. However, the shaft of the bones are disproportionately robust and thick, even for its size, and it was thought that these weights were likely an overestimate. But some other estimates have been made looking at girth at the ribcage, amount of soft tissue model, came with an average of about 5.9 metric tons, or about just under 6 tons, and ranges between 7 tons and 4.9 tons. So this is pretty much the size of modern African elephants, which makes it the largest non-mammalian synapsid and the biggest synapsid prior to the appearance of things such as brontotheres and elephant, proboscideans and indricotheres and other big mammals, which is quite interesting. So in terms of its discovery, Liszowicia was discovered in Losza, which is in southern Poland, and it dates back to the late Jurassic. And remains were found in 2006 by Jerzy Tomaszewski, Jerzy Drzyk, and lots of Polish people. They originally actually thought that it was the bones of a sauropodomorph because of its size, but then they actually found it was a dicynodont. And between 2007 and 2014, over 1,000 bones of Liszowicia were collected. And then it was later described in January of 2019, and the genus name refers to Liszowic, where the place was where it was found. And Bojani honors kind of Ludwig Hendrik Bojanus, who was a German physician and naturalist who did pioneering work on comparative anatomy and paleontology, with the known fossils of the species being held in the Institute of Paleobiology in the Polish Academy of Sciences in Warsaw, in Poland. In terms of its classification, it's a Caramaginiform, which is the group that most Jurassic dicynodonts belong to, and the family Sharkulidae, which includes a lot of the last remaining ones like Placerius and things like that. It is believed to be closely related to the Placerius, which is from North America, which is quite interesting. And in terms of its it really tells a lot about its anatomy and its evolution as we talk about there. So prior to the discovery, it was thought that the evolution of the giant Jurassic sauropodomorphs would have been exclusive to dinosaurs, and other large herbivores would not have achieved those similar sizes. So things like Plateosaurus and those large sauropodomorphs that became a thing at the end of the Jurassic. But it turns out the elephantine size of Liszowicia showed that these guys actually did get quite large, and it would have evolved right into the late Jurassic. So they would have gotten bigger and bigger right until the end of the Jurassic. So this is like continuous evolution. And the evolution of gigantism in both sauropodomorphs and Liszowicia suggests there were ecological factors that allowed both these lineages to grow into giant sizes rather than specific traits inherent to sauropodomorphs that would allow them. And this evolution of gigantism in these dicynodonts was a gradual process. It was about 20 years, and actually showed lots of changing in the muscles and musculoskeletal system to achieve the size and the posture. It's actually possible that this was driven by predators, or perhaps metabolic, to get more energy out of their food, being able to ferment more food. It also highlights that dicynodont evolution of the late Jurassic is poorly understood. Everyone kind of thought they went extinct by the end of the Jurassic, but they actually became quite big at the end of the Jurassic, as evidenced by Liszowicia, so that's quite interesting as well. In terms of its feeding and diet, Liszowicia is considered a herbivore, with most other dicynodonts, with a low beak to chew, although the large size implies it would have eaten higher leads of vegetations. There has been coprolites attributed to this species, shows they may be eating soft vegetation and conifers. However, some show large woody material, suggest they would have been, pretty much eating whatever they could. This also suggests that there may have been seasonal variation in their diet, possibly when the preferred diet of soft vegetation was out of season, so they would have gone to take a bit more wood and things. In terms of predation, there are numerous bones found in juvenile Liszowicia from the Archosaur smock, which is a kind of a large animal that lived with it. Historical growth, histology showed that they had a rapid growth in juveniles, very similar to other large dicynodonts. However, with the growth rate, they slowed down. These guys would have not slowed their growing, so they would have just got grown. They kept that growth rate going until they got bigger, kind of thing. The possibility these bones belonging to juveniles with an even larger adult body size is estimated, was ruled out partly because of their large size, but also they do have legs, so you can kind of see that this is starting to become adults. which is quite interesting. And so there is also evidence that they grew very rapidly to adult body size, otherwise his legs would be truly absent. And there is kind of suggesting that there may have been permanent growth, they would have grown throughout their lives in Lesser-Wikia. And there's actually evidence of these guys being latrinas. So latrinas are animals that will all poo in one place. And there's evidence of the abundant accumulations of coprolites suggest that these guys may have been communal latrinas. So all of them come together and poop in one spot, which obviously keeps their environment clean and helps prevent the spread of disease. A lot of species today are like that, which is interesting. So this suggests that they may have been, herd animals and all pooed in the same place, and they would have been like complex social behaviors like modern mammals. In Lesser-Wikia, coexisted with a broad array of very late Jurassic animals, which is very interesting, including the predatory Archosaur smock, which could be, Rarasuchian and basal Archosaur, potentially early dinosaur, all sorts of things. Small dinosauromorphs like Saleosaurids and Neotheropods, pterosaurs, small crocodilomorphs, which could be thought to be a plesiosaur, also Archosauromorphs, phenodonts, small early mammals, and large tender-spinal amphibians. So these guys would have been very interesting environment. The environment it lived in was actually compared very wet and swampy, very similar to the modern-day Everglades, with slow meandering rivers and oxbow lakes with lots of vegetation like ginkgos, seed ferns, conifers, and things like that. And the absence of any large sauropod herbivores in this environment is interesting, as there are many other places, even in Europe, that has Platysaurus, which got up to about 10 meters long, was quite large. It is possible that these guys competed directly with sauropodomorphs. However, it's possible that because of the absence was unrelated, and instead Lesser-Wikia grew to its massive size to fill the role of the herbivore, otherwise occupied by sauropodomorphs in other areas. So that's another interesting little adaptation for them. But yeah, another great mod by Great Cakes Mod. Love seeing some extinct animals I get to talk about. Actually, for the next few parts of this series, are going to be lots of extinct animals, particularly mammals. So you guys will be very happy. You paleo fans will be enjoying it very much. But anyway. So we're going to finish the video up there. So thanks to everyone, Great Cakes Mod, Scout, and Monsoon. Everyone did a great job with these mods. So, yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit that little bell icon to get notified of anything. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.